To the survivors in the room, if you are willing, please stand. And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please know for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand. Attorney General Bondi, you apologized to the survivors in your opening statement for what they went through at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through with the absolutely unacceptable release of the Epstein files and their information?
Congresswoman, you sat before Merrick Garland sat in this chair twice.
Attorney General Bondi,
No, can I finish my answer?
No, I'm going to reclaim my time because I asked you.
With your final 17 seconds.
What a massive cover-up this has been and continues to be.
One word. That is all it took. 7 words from the Attorney General of the United States. 7 words in response to 11 women standing behind her with their hands raised. 7 words that told you everything about who she came to that room to protect. I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics. Stay until the very end of this video, because what happens in the final 17 seconds of Jayapal's time is the moment that defines everything. And the photograph that came out of that room, Bondi looking straight ahead while 11 hands are raised behind her, will follow her for the rest of her career. February 11th, 2026. House Judiciary Committee, Room 2141, 10:47 a.m. Eastern Time. The women in white had been sitting behind Pam Bondi since the hearing opened. 11 of them. Not scattered through the gallery. Directly behind the witness table, close enough that if Bondi had turned around, she would have been looking directly at them. They wore white on purpose. Not for the cameras, for each other. These were survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking operation. They had fought for accountability for years. They had watched a law get passed that required the Justice Department to release the files. And then they had watched the Justice Department release those files with their names exposed, their photographs published, their private information made public while the names of powerful men were carefully redacted. Some of them found out their families had discovered what happened to them through the news. Not from them, from the documents. They came to that hearing room to watch the Attorney General answer for it. For 5 hours, Bondi sat at the witness table. She traded insults with Democrats. She called the hearing a circus. She called Jamie Raskin a washed-up loser lawyer. She held up a binder with a Congresswoman's DOJ search history. She did everything except turn around. Watch what Jayapal did next. Because it was not a speech, it was a demonstration. She did not ask Bondi about legal procedures. She did not ask about redaction timelines or compliance reports. She turned to the gallery. She asked the survivors to stand. Then she asked them to raise their hands if they had not been able to meet with the Department of Justice. Every single hand went up. 11 hands. Behind the Attorney General of the United States, on camera, in the congressional record. The room did not produce a dramatic reaction. No shouting, no gavel. Just the weight of 11 raised hands hanging in the air while Bondi sat perfectly still and looked straight ahead. Jayapal turned back to the witness table. She asked Bondi one question. Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through? Bondi's lawyers did not lean in. Her aides did not pass her a note. She did not pause or look down or reach for her water. She answered immediately. I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics. That word, theatrics. That is the entire argument. Not the legal argument, the human one. Jayapal had not asked a legal question. She had asked a moral one. She had asked an attorney general who had expressed condolences to the survivors in her opening statement to demonstrate those condolences in the same room where the people she expressed them for were standing behind her with their hands raised? The answer was theatrics. Theatrics is a word you use to describe a performance. It implies what you are witnessing is not real, that the emotion is manufactured, that the request is not genuine. When Bondi called it theatrics, she was not responding to Jayapal. She was responding to the 11 women behind her. She was characterizing their presence, their raised hands, their years of waiting, as staging. Watch what happened to Jayapal's face when she heard it, because she did not pause. She did not push back on the word. She knew the word had already done the damage it was going to do. She used her final seconds. What a massive cover-up this has been and continues to be. That sentence is now in the congressional record, permanently. Now I need to stop for a second. If what happened in that room matters to you, if you believe the women in white deserved a different answer, drop one word in the comments right now. Accountability or theatrics? Because those two words are the entire hearing. Do it now. Then keep watching. Because what Jayapal had shown the committee before she asked Bondi to turn around is the piece that makes the theatrics answer impossible to defend. She had shown them 2 documents. The first was an email from Epstein to a man whose name the Justice Department had redacted. The email read, "Where are you? Are you okay?" I loved the torture video. The man's name was only revealed after members of Congress demanded access to unredacted files. His name was Sultan Ahmed bin Sulam, chairman and CEO of a company with financial ties to President Trump's business, personal ties to Steve Bannon. His name had been protected. The second document was a page titled Epstein Victim List, 32 names, released with only one redaction, along with emails, addresses, nude photographs, and the identities of Jane Does, who had been protected in sealed court proceedings for decades. Until the Department of Justice published their information, their names had not been protected. The pattern is specific. The powerful were shielded. The survivors were exposed. And when a Congresswoman asked the Attorney General to face the survivors and acknowledge what had been done to them, the answer was theatrics. Jayapal had asked them to stand. Every hand went up. The room understood what that meant. The cameras captured it. The record preserved it. Bondi never turned around. Now step back entirely, because this moment did not happen in isolation. 3 million pages. That is how many pages the Justice Department released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. 3 million pages that took years of congressional pressure, a bipartisan bill, and a discharge petition to force into existence. In those 3 million pages, the names of powerful men were redacted. The names of survivors were not. The Department of Justice initially published a list of 32 survivors' names, photographs, contact information, the private details of women who had spent years fighting to keep their identities protected in sealed court proceedings, released. When members of Congress visited the DOJ to review unredacted files, they discovered names that had been hidden. Powerful names. Connected names. The kind of names that the department had decided, without clear legal justification, required additional protection. Survivors had no such protection. Danny Bensky said it after the hearing ended. There was such a lack of empathy today. There was such a lack of honestly humanity today. Teresa Helm said it. There was no integrity in that room today when it came to Epstein and Maxwell. These are not legal conclusions. They are human ones. From women who sat in that room for 5 hours watching the Attorney General trade insults with Democrats, hold up search history binders, and call the demand for an apology gutter theatrics. The women in white had not come to Washington to perform. They had come because the law had finally forced the files open, because they had believed that the institution responsible for their cases would finally face them, would finally acknowledge them, would finally demonstrate on a human level that what had been done to them, not just by Epstein, not just by the people whose names are still protected, but by a Department of Justice that exposed their information while shielding the powerful, would be treated as the violation it was. Bondi said, "I'm deeply sorry for what any victim has been through," in her opening statement. Then she refused to turn around. That gap between the statement and the action is not a procedural gap. It is not a legal one. It is a gap that the 11 women standing in that room, with their hands raised, their names already published, their families already informed by documents instead of by them, that gap belongs to them. The record has it all. The raised hands, the word theatrics, the Sultan email, the victim list, the photograph of Bondi looking straight ahead. History will decide what that photograph means. But the record has already captured what it shows. If this breakdown helped you understand what actually happened in that room, hit the like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to see what the women in white came to Washington for on February 11th. Subscribe and turn on notifications because the next breakdown is already coming. And drop one word in the comments: accountability or theatrics. Because that word is the hearing.